Hello and welcome to That Nerd Thing, where we uncover the magical impact that fandoms have on our lives. I'm Morgan, and I am so excited because today I am chatting with another fangirl of all of the podcasts that I love. So, hi, Tiara. I am so excited that you're here. Can you tell listeners more about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a different online social media presence. I mainly focus on fashion and kind of that world. I'm a midsize girl, so most of my content is about midsize. I'm also a girl who has infertility, so that's like another part of something I focus on. And that's mainly what my content is most about, but there's a lot more about me than just that.
I know, and I'm so excited to dive into that today and hear more about your nerdy identity. I was so excited when you reached out, one, because of the fact that you heard me on Millennial, and then you listened to the podcast, and then you emailed me. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I was like, wow, I actually have somebody emailing me, who heard about me and just wants to chat.
Yeah, I really like the concept of your podcast because it kind of gives more of a glimpse into who the people are versus just what they do. And I really
Yeah.
liked that aspect of it. So I was very intrigued. And yeah, I listened to your podcast.
Cool. I'm just curious. Was there anything surprising about, I'm not sure which episodes you've listened to, but did you learn anything new about any of the millennial hosts when they were on my show?
I've listened to all the millennial hosts. Most of the millennial stuff, I, like you, have been a fan for a very long time. I started listening in 2008 with MuggleCast and then with Smart Mouths and
Mm-hmm.
basically all their iterations. I even used to listen to Pam when she was on Hypable and she did some of the Hypable podcasts. So not a ton of it was surprising to me, but it's always really enjoyable to hear them not on their podcast, doing other things. Because to me, I don't know if you feel the same way, but to me, they're like my friends.
Oh,
They're
yeah,
like
for
some of my
sure.
longest relationships, you
I
know?
know, right?
I've actually met Andrew in person, and that was pretty cool.
Did you hang out or was it at a con?
We hung out.
Oh, that's cool.
I asked him, I was in Vegas and I had some time. And so I asked him if he wanted to grab some lunch. And I've been on their podcast a couple of times.
Yeah.
And so I've also I'm an active member of the community. I'm on the Patreon and everything. So they know who I am. And so he was like, yes, absolutely. Let's grab lunch. And that was a huge moment. I was sweating bullets waiting for him at the restaurant because I'm always early and I made my husband wait with me because I was so nervous.
Oh my God, that's so cute. I love that. You're living a dream of mine. I'm like, you know what? I feel like I need to go to Vegas just so I can hang out with Andrew.
You know what I did listening? So I did listen to the Laura podcast. I've listened to, all three of them, but I've always felt connected to Laura, ever since the beginning. And then listening to her podcast, I feel like you'll see some similarities between her and I. I feel like out of the three, her and I are the most similar.
Are you ready to dive into your nerdy identity?
Yeah, let's get started.
Awesome. What is the first thing that you were nerdy about?
So, my very first memory of being obsessed with something is actually going to be kind of shocking. When I was growing up, my mom loved horror movies. My mom and my stepdad loved horror movies. So, I had been watching horror movies since I could remember. They did not shield any of that from us. And so, the very first thing I remember being incredibly obsessed with was The Langoliers from Stephen King. It was a small series that he did it was if you've ever seen Rose Red or The Stand, it was kind of like one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And I was obsessed with that story. And that's kind of that's been a thread throughout my whole life.
Horror?
I like horror, but the specific genre of horror where it's monster horror is something
Uh-huh.
that I am really obsessed with. But the thing that is the most I was ravenous for was Harry Potter. I feel like that's a
Yeah.
lot of people's
Of
answers.
course.
Yeah, I Harry Potter was something that it just became it became a part of my identity.
Yeah. So, and then you were a huge MuggleCast fan too.
As I've gotten older, I have moved away from Harry Potter mainly just because other interests have caught me more. And as
Yeah.
I've gotten older, like kind of having more mature or like adult fandoms that I've kind of dove into, Harry Potter is not as much a part of my life. Also,
Yeah.
the things are going on
Yeah.
with the Harry Potter fandom, and I'm just not as into it as I used to be. I mean, being a Hufflepuff was like my identity for a long time. I was like, I'm such a Hufflepuff. And I still have very fond memories of Harry Potter. I still like I haven't gotten rid of any of my like collection, but
Hmm.
I wouldn't say that I consume the content as much as I used to.
Yeah. I understand that. What's your favorite nerdy thing?
So I am a huge nerd for books. I would say that's like people know I'm a reader, like I'm a huge reader. People come to me for book recommendations. So I'd say that's like probably the nerdiest thing about me. I also say like all the things that I'm obsessed with have probably come from a book first. I am that girl who is at the movie and I'm like, the books were better.
Yeah.
Like I'm such
Oh
a
man, I have a shirt that says that I should have worn it today.
that's just like one of those things where I'm just like, yeah, I probably have read the book first. And so that romantasy and horror are my two genres. Those are really like where I live the most. I tend to want to escape more than like if it's anywhere set in our modern world, I probably am not that into it, except for I have one exception, but we can talk about that one later.
Oh, okay. Is it going to be one of your nerdy things?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, perfect. So your favorite nerdy thing is books.
Yeah.
Do you have like certain books that are some of your favorites?
Yeah, so I have like favorite standalone books. I have favorite authors. I would say like my number one favorite right now is Sarah J. Maas.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely tear through her stories. I think she's an incredible author. I know that when you were talking to Andrew about like he thinks that the next big thing will be Fourth Wing, like that world, the
Mm-hmm.
Empyrean world. I think that it's already here and it's already Sarah J. Maas. Like, I think that
You think
she's the
so?
next, yeah. I think that she's like the next big thing. She already has
Yeah.
like balls. They're being, that have her book
Yeah.
names in them. So,
That's
yeah.
true. That's a good point. Have her books had midnight release parties?
I think that her audience probably goes a little older. And so
Okay.
it's not necessarily like, I mean, but if she did, that would be
I'm
amazing.
sure they'll have it now.
Yeah, like now that that Iron Flame had a midnight release party, I really
Yeah.
think that there will be more. But she has like her fans are super dedicated. They are like really into the world. I mean, she has tons of merch, Etsy sellers, everything. People make fan art on Instagram. That's kind of how I like gauge the popularity of something is how much fan art they have out there.
Oh, interesting.
Hmm.
Right now I'm reading, what is it? A Court of Silver Flames, the fifth one.
Yes, the raunchy
Yeah.
one. Oh,
Really? Oh,
yeah.
I'm excited. Okay. I'm only like 50 pages in, so I am ready for it because I loved A Court of Mist and Fury, of
That's
course.
my favorite book of all time. Like my absolute favorite book. I thought that book like did something to me. Like I was so obsessed with that book. Like just her growth. I had never experienced anything like that.
Yeah, it was really good. Oh, but
Mhm.
I'm kind of excited that so the one I'm reading now is the raunchy one. I thought the other ones
Oh
were
yeah.
raunchy.
No, no. That one is the one.
Ooh, okay, good to know. What are you currently nerdy about?
I am currently nerdy about Grady Hendrix. It's an author. Like
Oh, okay.
he does horror, but I think that he's just an incredible horror writer. Like he's just amazing. But if we're not going based on books again, I am really into I'm trying to think of like a TV show that I'm watching that I'm just like I feel like Bridgerton, like everybody is obsessed with Bridgerton. I'm
I
so
am.
excited because the new
I
season releases
know.
today.
And I'm like, I have
This
so
is
much to
good.
do, but I want to watch the show. But yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, Bridgerton for sure. I went to the Bridgerton ball with my best friend.
Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
jealous. That's so
It was
cool.
so much fun. It was so much fun.
That sounds amazing. I love season two. I'm obsessed with Kate and Anthony. Like,
Yes.
love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that season 2 was even better than season 1.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I have a confession. I haven't seen Queen Charlotte, and mainly because I have to have I like to binge watch,
Uh-huh.
and it was so long in between Queen Charlotte or the Bridgerton, and so I before between season 2 and season 3, and
Hmm.
so I'm just gonna do a whole Bridgerton weekend, and I'm gonna watch Queen Charlotte, and then I'm gonna watch season 3. I just wanted to, like, pack it all together and just immerse myself in Bridgerton.
Yes, I love that. Queen Charlotte is really good. It's like such a close top for me to season 2. Like it just
Yeah. I hate waiting for something. I get
yeah.
really upset when somebody recommends a book to me and then I read it and I realize that it's not a complete series. And I'm like, "Why would you do that?" I'm currently listening to Powerless
Hmm.
and it's so good. And then I find out that Reckless isn't doesn't come out until June or July. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, "Why?" Like, I hate waiting.
Same. And that's how I feel when somebody recommends something that was like canceled. So there's no ending. And I'm like, no, I can't do it. Like, I
Of
refuse to
course.
watch Firefly. And I know people are obsessed with that. They love it. It has this huge fan base. But I know all the fans are so upset it was canceled. So I'm like, I will never watch it.
Yeah,
I
that's
can't
a
do it.
big one. I think it's for Firefly, it helped because Serenity got released. So
Okay.
it's like a little add to the story, but I totally get it. If it leaves on a cliffhanger and it's not coming back, don't even talk to me about it. I don't want to know. I don't want to invest my time in that and then not have a satisfying ending. I can't. I can't do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't know if you've been listening to the latest episodes of Millennial, but they've been calling people on After Dark with some questions. And I was like, preparing some answers in case they ended up calling me. And one of the
Me
questions was,
too.
what was it? Like, what would you do if you had like $1 billion or whatever? And I'm like, like a fun answer. I mean, you would do all the obvious things that you could do with the money. And then I would like revive all the canceled shows that I was so upset were canceled or like bring them back and like never ending.
I'm like, just write an ending. Like I will take a script. I'll take anything.
Yeah.
Like I want a satisfying ending.
Yeah.
That's my thing.
Yeah. What is the most underrated nerdy thing about you?
So I think that this is where I wanted to bring up this like one caveat that I had. So I love Michael Crichton, love him. And one of the reasons why I love him so much is because his books like all take place in Silicon Valley in the Bay Area where I live. Jurassic Park is huge, right? We all know this. Michael Crichton wrote Jurassic Park. I love Jurassic Park. It's something that Laura and I
Hmm.
share. I'm obsessed. Like the character in Jurassic Park, Jeff Goldblum's character, so Ian Malcolm, that is like my dad. Like my dad looks like him. That's kind of my dad's personality. And so I've always had this like affinity, but Michael Crichton books in general are just like I think that everybody should read them. They are just so good. He's such a good writer. I'm so sad that he's gone. And it just, yeah, that's like probably the most underrated thing in my opinion. Also, like just the style of writing, he's a really good writer. The tech in it is way advanced for when he was writing these books.
Oh,
Like
cool.
it's insane. The kind of tech that he was writing about is the kind of tech that we're starting to see now. And he was writing these books like 30 years ago. It's insane. Like even longer than
Wow.
that, even 40 years ago. So it's really interesting, like his ideas.
That's cool. I'll definitely have to check that out because I love like futuristic type things and reading about that. It's so fun.
Yeah, he does a lot of work on like microscopic video, like nanotechnology is what a lot of his books are based on. And it's just so fascinating. To me, and it's kind of scary too. Like it's this kind of horror with technology involved. And so it gives me
Oh,
a thrill.
that
Yeah.
sounds fun.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I'm saying this every episode as I'm hearing about all these nerdy things. Like, I don't know what to do. My list is growing and growing and growing.
I feel the same way sometimes.
Yeah. What is the most random nerdy thing about you?
Ooh, okay. I love Formula One.
Oh, did you listen to the episode with Nicole?
I no, I haven't heard that one yet,
Yeah,
so I'll
Nicole
have
from
to,
Fantasy
like
Fangirls. She
okay,
loves
yeah.
Formula One.
I love Formula One. I am a huge fan of sports documentaries. I am not a sporty person. don't care about sports in general, but sports documentaries I love watching, and I don't know
Interesting.
what it is about it. It's just like exciting, and I think because you don't have to see all of the superfluous things, like you could just get to the meat of the story. And
Mm-hmm.
I've had like some pretty profound loss and grieving in the last couple of years. And when I was in that moment, like even stories and books like were too much of a trigger for me because if like this particular theme was in the books, I couldn't read it. Like I had to stop. I
Yeah.
just could not. It was too hard. And so I started watching the Formula One documentary on Netflix, and that was it. I was hooked. I mean, there's like, it's just, it had nothing to do with what I was going through. And that's exactly what I needed in the moment. And so now I'm like obsessed. I love it. I listen to podcasts about it. I watch all the races. Like, I am in it. I am in the world.
Wow, that's so cool. And it's so interesting how you started with a documentary and then that really brought you into it. So you were really fascinated with the story.
Yeah, and it just happened to be, I think it had a lot to do with the timing,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes people they can like connect with certain things with these moments in time in their life, and it's just what I happen to need at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Fandoms and nerdy things are really powerful. So let's hear more about your journey into fandom.
Well, I think it all started with, in terms of like my journey into fandom, it would have to be with Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And then listening to MuggleCast, and then listening to Andrew. Maybe it's Andrew that I followed. I hope he doesn't think I'm creepy. Like,
I mean, every episode that I talk about him, my niece texts me and she's like, Morgan, I think you're still in love with Andrew. So
see, I never had a crush on Andrew. I think I
really?
will say that.
Okay.
Yeah, never had a crush on him. I used to think that Matt was cute, but that's
Oh
like
my
on a whole
God.
nother.
I I have so you listen to Imprint, right? I
Yes, I
don't know
did.
I don't know if you remember years ago before they went on tour. I don't remember exactly what happened. I think Matt said that if you donate, he'll give you a kiss at like one of the live shows. And I was 18 and I went to the live show in Orlando and I went up to him after and I said that. And I have a picture of him kissing me on the cheek. It was so funny. Yeah.
Aww.
Yeah, one of my favorite
Yeah, I
memories.
used to think that I was like, Matt's a hunk. Like I was like he was probably my crush. I think everybody falls in love with Micah's voice.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, like so I followed MuggleCast, Smart Mouths,
Mhm.
and then Hypable. I listened to like all the Hypable podcasts. And then now on to Millennial. But I'm like a huge fan of Survivor, and I listen to a lot of Survivor rewatches, podcasts. I watch YouTube videos about Survivor. That's probably other like I probably should have brought that up earlier. I just thought about that. I'm like, yeah, I'm like a big I'm a big fan of
That's
Survivor.
super cool.
I'm pretty involved in like the Survivor fan world.
Are you also involved in Big Brother? Because I know they're kind of like,
No,
okay.
I don't love Big Brother. It's too long. There's too many episodes. It's
Yeah.
too involved. And for me with Survivor, I don't necessarily love all of the scheming. I
Mm,
love
hmm.
seeing I love them doing the kind of out there like starving and what it does to you, and they're actually going through something physical as well as mental,
Yeah.
and to me it's like that struggle just to survive on top of playing this mental game. To me, that's really interesting because you can see it really breaks them down. There are moments where it just it either destroys or makes them, and I really love watching that aspect of it.
Yeah. I've only watched one season, but I've read about so much of it on Twitter because I guess for some reason I follow a lot of Survivor players and there's also a lot of overlap with Big Brother. So I feel like I
Yeah,
know a little bit about that world.
because of the area that I live in, there are some Survivor players who live like in this area because they're in the tech world. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
been pretty cool when like people who are around me who are like, "Hey, you're really into Survivor, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "We know so and so." And I'm
Oh,
like,
that's
"That
so
is
cool.
so
That
cool."
is
Like it's so
cool.
cool to me.
Yeah. So what other fandoms do you love?
I would say I love survive. It's like funny because talking about all these things, and I was like, I feel like I need to be succinct.
The magic of editing, don't worry. And you know what? We could always have a part two.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So there's like this one author. Okay, now like you've added these whole other things. I love monster horror
Mhm.
and like paranormal. When I tell people I love horror, I have to be very specific. I do not like torture porn. I don't like it
Same.
when it's humans hurting other humans, where it's like that was their choice. You know, like that's not what I'm into. So Saw, Hostel, any of those is
Yeah.
not my
Me too.
jam.
I hate gore.
Yeah, I also do not love true crime. I feel like it's important to watch true crime and to listen about true crime because I think it's important to know like what is really out there, but it's not something I necessarily seek out. Like I listen to a couple of podcasts of true crime, but I have to have it mixed in with other things. So I can't just listen to that straight, where some people that's all they consume is true crime.
Yeah.
That's not where I'm at. I am more into the escapism. So I would say I love like, I guess it's not really horror, but like the Godzilla world.
Oh,
I
cool.
love,
Yeah.
yeah, I love like the Monarch world. And I also love this movie with Kristen Stewart talking about Twilight. I love this movie that she did. It's called Underwater. And I love that movie. I watch it all the
Oh, I don't think
time.
I've
It's
seen it.
great. There's another movie that Matt Damon did, and oh my God, did it get panned? It was, people hated it. I loved it. It's called The Great Wall. I watch it all the time.
Yeah, I haven't
It's so
seen that either.
stupid.
Oh gosh, adding to my list.
Yeah. Yeah, like A Quiet Place is a really
Yeah.
great like example of creature horror because it's a horror movie, but there's people are being killed by like alien creatures.
Hmm.
Also, what's that one that they did? I'm literally catching a blank. It was a huge hit when it came out.
Cabin in the Wood?
No, no, no. It was like shaky cam. It had come out after Blair Witch Project, and it's this monster that goes into New York.
Cloverfield?
Cloverfield, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, love Cloverfield.
That
Love
was
it.
good. Yeah.
But I don't love Cloverfield's 10 lane.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
It's a part of the world, but I don't like the story because it's about a guy who traps these people into his basement and what he
Oh
does to them.
geez. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like that stuff
Yeah, I'll
either.
take the bear any day.
Oh, I know, right?
Going back to Stephen King, I'm a huge Stephen King fan, mainly because my mom is a huge Stephen King fan. I grew up in a divorced household. My dad lived on the East Coast. My mom lived or on the East Coast. I've never lived on the East Coast. My dad lives on the West Coast. My mom lived in the South. And so when I was apart from one parent or another, when I was apart from my dad, I watched Jurassic Park. When I was apart from my mom, I would watch Stephen King movies. And because they like make me feel really close to her. And even to this
Aw.
day, when she visits or when I go there, that's what we do is we watch Stephen King movies together. Like we'll just like marathons of Stephen King movies. She used to record. She can't get in trouble for this anymore, right? So, yeah, I don't think so. She used to like she would buy the pay-per-view movies or they would be showing them on TV and she would record them on DVD. And so she has all of the Stephen King movies, even the ones that haven't been, or like the Stephen King miniseries, I guess is what they're called. Even the ones that haven't been released on their own on
Hmm.
DVD, she has DVDs of them.
That's
So
amazing.
all of these movies that I would watch as a child, like Rose Red and Storm of the Century, all of these movies, The Stand, the original, and then the one that was released more recently is also fantastic. And her and I watched that together. And so Stephen King is probably this like deep memory that I have that's like her and I are connected through that.
That's amazing. And that just goes to show how powerful all of these stories and these passions that we have can be. That's wonderful.
In this instance, I feel like the miniseries were actually better than the books. I
Oh,
hardly
okay.
ever say that, but if you have read any of the older Stephen King books, you'll understand because boy, there are some rough themes in there. Like rough and the It miniseries before, and then the It remakes now cut out some very specific things that, in my opinion, really needed to be cut out. So I feel like those are actually better than the books that he's written in those cases.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Do you have a favorite fandom?
I would probably say at this point, Sarah J. Maas is my favorite fandom.
Okay.
Yeah. I have recommended her books to so many people. I've actually got people back into reading based on her
Yeah.
books. I went to a signing that she did for
Oh, that's
actually
cool.
a Court of Mist and Fury, and she's just great. The people who are reading her tend to be around the same age that I am. And I've had moments in my life where I was pretty lonely. And there's always a fangirl out there of Sarah J. Maas that like you can connect with and kind of fangirl over. So I would say that that's my favorite fandom at this moment.
I actually have a question. So I'm finishing up the fifth book in Akatar, and I've heard that I should read Throne of Glass, that series next, and then Crescent City. Would you agree with that recommendation?
Yes, yes. I think that that's a very good recommendation. And I will add a caveat to that. Read Throne of Glass, look up, because there is The Assassin's Blade, which is like her
It's a
prequel
prequel, right?
novellas. Yeah.
Okay.
But don't read that before you start Throne of Glass. So read that before you start Air of Fire.
Okay. Isn't that what she recommended?
Yeah. And I think she's totally right
Okay.
because that's exactly how I would do it.
And then I know some people do a tandem read of two of the books.
I did. I did
You
the
did
tandem
it?
read because I reread all of the books before she released House of Flame and Shadow. And I did the tandem read, and it's easier than you think. And I totally thought it was worth it because Tower of Dawn is not my favorite book. I find that it was kind of hard to get through. But if you mix that
That's
in,
so cool. Like reading two
yeah,
books at the same time and
yeah, it was really, I think that that really helped my
okay.
read, like get through Tower of Dawn. I'm like, let's just do it.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. Cool. So that's the second time I got that recommendation, so I'm going to stick with it cuz I am on the fifth book, so
Yeah. Did you read Court of Frost and Starlight?
yes.
Okay.
So what would you say fandom's like?
I would say fandom, in my opinion, in my experience, has been really inclusive because you're all together loving the same thing, right? And so as long as you're not harming other people, I would say it's pretty inclusive. I really like that about it. And then you're so passionate about the same thing that it's kind of like a built-in little group of friends.
Yeah.
I really like that about it. I've moved around a lot in my life, and it was really hard for me to connect with people long term, I would say. But when you're in a fandom, that's what you can connect over. And so it's easier to make friends, especially as an adult, right? Because it's so hard to make friends as an adult because you don't see them all the time. It's not like you're forming these friendships in school. And people grow up and they grow apart. And so a lot of times those friendships that you did have when you were younger are no longer friendships that you want to move on. Like I've broken up with friends before and it was really hard. But the friends that I have through fandom, I've had for a long time because they're just there because you guys love the same thing. And usually if you love one thing the same, you love more things the same because
Right.
that's things that you have in common.
Yeah. How has fandom changed your life?
I've just like my life was not always the most stable. And I moved around a lot. As I've gotten older, I've gone through a lot of loss. I've gone through a lot of like personal hardships. And throwing myself into another world, like almost like escapism, kind of helped me survive because it gave me something else to focus on that wasn't just grief. Like it gave me this escape, and formed I formed very close connections to fictional characters that don't exist, but I love them and I hold them very dear to my heart. And so they kind of helped pull me out of situations that I didn't think I could pull myself from.
Yeah, I totally relate to that. Who are some of your most loved characters?
Probably Feyre
Yeah.
from from A Court of Thorns and Roses. And mainly her, I think that that's why her second book really resonated with me, because her just personal growth. I will say it was very hard for me reading Silver Flames, and not because of Nesta, but because of favorite. I don't want to spoil it for anybody.
Okay, well, anybody who doesn't want to be spoiled, fast forward, like, I don't know, I'll come in and I'll do a voiceover as I'm editing the episode and tell you how long to fast forward. If you don't want a plot point from A Court of Silver Flames spoiled, then fast forward about 90 seconds.
Yeah. So Feyre's pregnancy storyline was really
Oh,
hard
I
for
didn't know she was
me.
pregnant.
Oh,
That's
see,
so funny. That's okay. I saw fan art, so I figured it's coming anyways. Oh wait, that's so funny. I'm telling you, like, okay, spoil it when I haven't finished the book.
it's just I really struggle. Like, I'm infertile. Like,
Oh
the last
yeah,
couple of years, I went through IVF. I've had a lot of miscarriages,
that's so
and
hard.
that was really hard for me. And so, like, that was the one time where I had to put aside Sarah J. Maas. And I had to, that's why I got really into Formula One, because
Yeah.
no pregnancies are happening on Formula One. Like, they don't really talk about the personal lives, right? It's all about racing and who's doing best. And, that's why I kind of threw myself into that. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was pretty difficult for me. And so that was like the only time where I was like, okay, I can't do this right now. Let's just drop that and then move forward. And I threw myself into something else. And then when I felt better,
Yeah.
I went back to Sarah J. Maas. And yeah, I mean, it's been better. So far, no other pregnancy storylines. So that's good.
Yeah, that's a good point though. I do think there should be trigger warnings for stuff like that.
I there's some aspects about that I do agree with, and then some aspects about it that kind of spoil it for people.
Yeah.
Because I just read Butcher and the Blackbird,
Yes, I just read that too.
and the spoiler warnings on that, like, basically give away the
I
book.
know. Did you listen to the audiobook?
I did,
Me too.
mainly just because people were telling me that I needed to listen, and his voice.
It was really good. I typically don't like to listen to audiobooks because I just read a little bit faster, but I
Yeah.
listened to that one because I needed to read it for my book club and the ebook wasn't available. So I got that and oh my gosh, it was good.
Yeah.
I liked it.
See, I have the opposite reason why I listen to audiobooks. I tend to read, I'm a speed reader. I read books really quickly. And when I want to savor something, I listen to the audiobook.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good reframe. You could savor it that way.
Yeah. I like to, like,
Yeah.
and then sometimes I get frustrated and I put it on 1.5 speed and I get through. But for
Yeah.
the most part, I like to savor. I like to savor the content, because if I'm just reading it, I mean, I could blow through. Gosh, I blew through like 6 books in a weekend. I mean, I just can.
Wow.
I can really just pack it in. It's been one of my superpowers since I was little.
Cool.
My dad used to say that I could just speed read. I read the seventh Harry Potter book in 7 hours and 32 minutes.
Oh my God.
'Cause I just, yeah, like,
Wow.
I could just mow. I can mow through them like nobody's business.
Yeah, that's fast.
It is fast, yeah. I feel like I don't always get, like, because 'cause I'm not reading every single individual
Yeah.
word,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's a good point. So with horror, do I'm just gonna jump right into it. Do you like zombies?
I hate zombies, and there's a very specific reason why I hate zombies. And there's this author who I absolutely love. She is super underrated. I love her. She goes by the pen name Mira Grant. She also has another pen name, but I don't really read that other stuff. But Mira Grant, great author. She's actually like one of my recommendations. Like, one of her books is a recommendation I'm gonna do later.
Ooh.
But she ruined zombies for me. And it was one story in particular. I used to be okay with zombies. I would have nightmares about them. Like, something about zombies really freaked me out. But she wrote this series called Newsflash. It's about zombies. And then she wrote this series of novellas,
Hmm.
like set in that universe. And in one of the novellas, she set it in an elementary school, and it absolutely destroyed me. Like, what would it look like if a zombie outbreak happened at an elementary school?
Oh my
And it's this
gosh.
like teachers, like this story focuses on one teacher and her classroom of students, and it was absolutely heartbreaking and devastating, and I sobbed. Like, I had nightmares about it for months. I still can't consume zombie content because of it, because that's all I could think about it. Like, her the way that she writes was so intense and descriptive, and I just ever since then, because, like, think about it. If there was a zombie break outbreak that happened and people were in school, what would that look
Oh
like?
my
And these are
gosh.
children. Like, it was awful. I
That is
couldn't.
awful. I wish I
Yeah.
didn't ask this question.
I'm
Oh.
sorry. I know, it's like, but, like, that's how really, like, how books can really affect
Yeah,
you and can
that's
really,
true.
like, change how you feel about something. Like, words are super, super powerful.
They are. They absolutely are. What does being a nerd mean to you?
I would say that the old classic definition of a nerd, where it's like these science nerds and stuff, they don't really apply anymore to like modern day. I'm actually really proud to be a nerd. Like, I feel like women a lot of times get underestimated, right? And people see, like, because of my content, because I do fashion stuff, like, I don't think that people would think that I would be nerdy, but I am such a nerd. Harry Potter, like, romantasy, all of these things, I'm such a nerd for. And I feel like everybody has these things that really define who they are as a person. So I am definitely very proud of being a nerd, and I'm not ashamed of my fandoms. I think that everybody needs something that they are connected to, and that's what connects us to other people in this world, because there's a lot of people in this world, and having these things that connect us to each other really makes a big difference.
Absolutely. And that is the perfect transition into my geeky recommendation for the week, actually, because we both are connected because we both support Millennial Podcast and our Patreons there. So, my recommendation for the week is to find a content creator that you love, a podcast that you love, and find a way to support them. Like, join their Patreon, join their community, and meet other fans of the content that you love, because you never know who you can meet.
I totally agree with that. I've met a lot of people through Millennial, and I'm really glad that I was able to find your podcast through them.
Me too.
Yeah. So I would say that my recommendation is Mira Grant, but in particular, one book, if you are a fan of paranormal or monster horror like I am, and it's called Into the Drowning Deep. And there's also a prequel called Rolling in the Deep. And this book I listened to it. I also have the physical version of it, but I mainly listen to it. I listen to it every single year. I love this book. It's about what could potentially be at the bottom of the Mariana Trench.
Oh,
So, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's about a documentary crew that goes out, like a documentary science vessel that goes out trying to find mermaids in the Mariana Trench, and it's about what they find. So,
oh,
it's pretty amazing.
that
It's a great
sounds,
book.
that does sound really good.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. I love stuff with the ocean because the ocean is so scary and fascinating to me.
Yeah. And this book starts off in Monterey. So again, it's that Bay Area connection. I don't know what
Awesome.
it is. I feel like everybody loves to read stuff that happens in their area of the world.
Yeah, that's true. I love reading books that have therapists in them because it's always like, ooh, this is so interesting to read about. Like, where it's not necessarily focused on the therapist or therapy, but it's kind of like sprinkled in there. It's just like kind of cool.
Yeah, because I was gonna ask you, because, like, I also, another one of my jobs is childcare, and I hate seeing how child caregivers are depicted on, in TV shows, sometimes in books. I'm like, that's not, like, that's not what it's like at all. But okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't like when it's a really bad therapist just because it's like, come on, are you giving therapists a bad name again? But I like when it's a little bit stretched from the truth, but not like where it's a terrible therapist. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I feel like child caregivers a lot of times like are not depicted in a very good light.
Yeah. That's true. Well, Tiara, thank you so much for being on the show and for reaching out. It's super cool that you listened to the show and then reached out. Like I was like, oh, you liked it. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, no problem. And thank you again for having me on.
Where can people find you?
So I am on social media pretty much everywhere at tiara.melissa. And then, so that's YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. And then if you are specifically interested in following my infertility journey or IVF or have questions about any of that kind of stuff, I'm at tiara.melissa.ttc on TikTok, which is a little bit different, but I don't know, if you're going through the journey, I get it. So go follow me over there. And I think that that's pretty much it. Yeah, I'm everywhere at tiara.melissa.
Perfect. And I'll share links to all of that in the show notes. Thank you all so much for listening. And please be sure that you are following That Nerd Thing in your favorite podcast app so that you never miss an episode. And I would love it so much if you could please leave a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you are watching the show on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe and like this video. You can get in touch with me via email at thatnerdthingpod@gmail.com. And you can follow the show on Instagram and TikTok at thatnerdthingpod. And please be sure to share this episode with all of your nerdy friends. And I will see you next time.